I'm not really sure how well seasonal content does on YouTube compared to TV, but there's no shortage of holiday specials on television, both new and old, even in superhero action cartoons. Badass action figure selling heroes want to kick back and drink hot cocoa by the fire near the end of the year too. And once again, we're looking over some of these Yuletide superhero shenanigans. I realize that no one wants to watch a Christmas special on Christmas because they're too busy going to two different houses full of tension after the divorce. And the next day, said Christmas special will be irrelevant because they're playing with their new video games and prepping for an alcohol-induced blackout on New Year's. So let's play it safe and put this out a little bit before Christmas. You know, while you're still in the mood. I expect those views on the 26th to drop harder than a lump of coal into a stocking, but it's too damn fun not to do this topic, so let's go! Cuddle up in a warm blanket, pour some milk, grab a plate of cookies, and put on that itchy hat. Did anyone else think his name was actually Static Shock as a kid? I didn't realize it was just Static until I was like 14. Let's start with the best episode on this list. Static Shock's episode Frozen Out is fantastic. It's dramatic, heartbreaking, heartwarming, and a great watch. While prepping for the usual holiday festivities, Virgil Hawkins, aka Static, has a few violent encounters with a young girl with the ability to control the weather and freeze things. Eventually, he learns more about her and finds out that she's homeless, and a lot of their battles were actually total misunderstandings because her powers aren't in complete control, and she came from an abusive home and lost her mother. Instead of beating her in a physical battle, he just reaches out to her on a human level and tells her she doesn't need to be scared of him anymore. Virgil learns an important lesson about not looking past the homeless or making assumptions about them because of the position they're in, and helps her get off the streets and somewhere safer. It's not afraid to go a little dark and serious, but pulls back at the end for a very wholesome conclusion. Hey, look, there's Richie's dad. Eesh. One thing I really appreciate about this episode is that they aren't too afraid to touch on the religious aspect of the holiday season and directly acknowledge what Static's faith is. But the show isn't, like, exclusive about it and has him hanging out with his friends that don't celebrate Christmas too, like his Jewish friend from school at her Hanukkah party. They also go to an interfaith church service that brings the entire community together at the end of the episode. Something about just saying what it is feels very uniquely Static Shock, because this show never tried to pull punches with content in the same way other superhero cartoons did. Drugs are mentioned, gang violence is shown, there's a school shooting in one episode, and they even directly address the topic of racism in Static. Being very upfront and honest about this stuff also reminds me of that embarrassingly bad Moon Knight Christmas episode of Ultimate Spider-Man where it seemed like he wasn't actually allowed to say the name of any holiday. So, he just keeps saying, the holidays! Like it was auto-filled into the script for that episode.
Never spent the holidays away from her. Sorry, closed for the holidays. But if you want to give New York City a lifetime of holiday nightmares, you're definitely on the right track. I've seen some really bad holiday decorations, but those are the worst. Happy holidays, everybody.
Okay, just be honest with us. We all know Spider-Man's Jewish. Come on, just say it. Fuck. Why do these episodes always start with the characters going to the mall? Is it because this is the one time of the year that rampant consumerism and irresponsible shopping sprees feel okay because you're at least buying shit for other people? Yeah. The animation isn't the best in these first two seasons of the show because the budget was lower and I'm certain WB didn't expect this to be a major hit, so the characters are flat colors with no shading and the movement is a little awkward at times. Looking back on it now, it's cool to see this show started so humble and then got a major upgrade later when they brought it into the DCAU. But for now, this episode isn't really at the top of the list because of its stellar fight scenes or animation or anything, it's just because of how mature and heartfelt the script is. It went for something more close to reality instead of your usual Christmas Carol parody or just beating a villain dressed as Santa. All the rest of these are that though, don't worry. Speaking of beating a villain dressed as Santa, Batman the Brave and the Bold has always been a favorite of mine because the way it balances absurdity and sincerity. This episode, Invasion of the Secret Santas, is no exception. The main focus of this episode is actually on Red Tornado instead of Batman. Tornado is an android superhero that wants to understand and adapt human emotions, making the holiday season especially difficult because he can't quite relate to everyone else's festiveness. Not for lack of trying, he's trying his best to get into the Christmas spirit in his own bizarro robotic way, and it's not quite working.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Ah.
Then he's called into action when Batman needs his help to stop alien invaders and an original villain created for the show named Funhouse, a villain that was better when he was named Inside Gaming. Funhouse's evil plan is to steal valuables from every family in the city on Christmas morning by selling miniature robot thieves to them in the guise of the holiday season's most popular toy. Imagine if Turbo Man robbed you at gunpoint. Or a good guy doll. Actually, that one would definitely happen.
Sure, how do you want it? Broken leg?
It's the most wonderful time.
For an episode that's so silly and cheery, it's kind of dark to reveal that Batman's parents in this universe were killed on Christmas Day of all days. Yet somehow this is one of the least depressed Batman variants across the multiverse. Not sure how that tracks. Maybe it's just so sad that he rubber banded back to being a more lighthearted Dark Knight instead? What sort of horrific, nauseating tragedy led to Adam West's Batman, if that's the case? There's a lot of sadness behind that Batusi. The name for that dance can't work anymore in 2023, it just sounds like I'm talking about his Batusi. Eventually, Red Tornado and Bats find themselves fighting an army of evil robot Santas, because why not? And Red Tornado pushes himself a bit too hard during the battle. It turns out, the sensation of Christmas spirit filling his body is actually just... Don't worry, he'll be alright, he's an automaton. I haven't really watched this show before. I watched the live-action one with Patrick Warburton growing up, and I liked that one a lot. But this cartoon was just never really on TV when I was a kid. I gotta say, after seeing one episode, I totally get why this one is so beloved and keeps coming back around every few years. It's hilarious. In a world that's sort of overpopulated with C-list superheroes with somewhat stupid gimmicks, the Tick and his pal Arthur get ready for the Christmas season when they come across a criminal in a Santa suit being pursued by the police. The Tick is extremely naive and innocent, so he naturally assumes this is the real Santa. After a goofy supervillain origin accident, the criminal Santa gains the ability to duplicate himself and becomes a one-man crime wave against the city. The Tick's childlike belief in Santa makes him too afraid to fight back against him until he gets a reality check from the real Santa. I like this show's take on Santa Claus as like a really busy celebrity that needs his own elfin security detail, like he's the president or something. In general, I just find remixes of Santa as something more serious as a really funny concept, like Fat Man, Violent Night, or that Professor X Santa from the Kids Next Door special. There's probably others, but like those are the ones that immediately come to mind. One of the biggest highlights of this special is the kick-ass voice cast. Bunch of guys from Ninja Turtles here. And I love when Jim Cummings plays villains, so his evil duplicating Santa sounds great.
Now you guys are all electric clones of me, right? And the more electricity, the more clones, right? And where is the greatest power source the city has? The hydroelectric plant at the city dam.
This one's got a great tongue-in-cheek sense of humor to it that elevates it a little bit above the others on this list because it can also get a chuckle out of me as an adult. I think of this show as being in the same vein as like Animaniacs or Simpsons, where a kid in the 90s could enjoy it with their parents. After watching this special alone, I definitely want to check out the rest of the show when I get the time. One of my favorite things about the 2003 TMNT series is how it establishes that Michelangelo is the best fighter on the team. He wins that big multiverse fighting tournament, he hangs out with superheroes, he has an interestingly high amount of solo episodes in the show away from his three brothers. It feels like this show was always unintentionally foreshadowing a certain comic arc from Eastman and Laird now that I think about it. But this Christmas special sees Mikey and a stray cat he adopted on an action-packed adventure to stop a gang of criminals from stealing a truckload of toys on Christmas Eve. Toys that were inbound for needy and underprivileged kids. Man, fuck those guys. You just know they're scalpers and they were gonna put that shit up on eBay for like 3 times the price it was the day before. These guys are the ones that stopped me from getting my mom that collectible Mark Ryden themed set of Barbie dolls, which is so oddly specific that it was a perfect gift for her. Kill them all, Mike. He spares their lives, but it's still pretty good. While he's off doing all that Die Hard shit, nearly the entire cast of characters all hang out back at the lair for a big Christmas party and wait for him to show up. I love this episode because they actually bring back tons of one-off characters from previous seasons of the show and acknowledge that the Turtles are still maintaining relationships with them even if it's off-screen for most episodes. And this cast of characters is so eclectic and weird. You got a talking rabbit samurai from another universe, an invulnerable superhero, a group of normal unhoused guys that the Turtles sometimes chill with, that kid that they stop from joining a gang. I love that this cartoon remembers shit that happened in previous episodes and builds on it instead of just introducing dozens and dozens of characters to only appear once and then never see them again. Given that we know what Splinter looks like in live action, I feel like seeing him in a Santa outfit in real life would certainly frighten me as a child, but it's cartoon logic and everyone at this orphanage just kind of rolls with it. It's like when you're a mutated anthropomorphic reptile and you can comfortably go to the movies as long as you dress like Rorschach. I love this episode's two clashing tones and storylines. One is a fast-paced, never-ending chase sequence, and the other is just like a wholesome get-together with characters you know and like. And it's really satisfying when the two plots come together at the end. Okay, I've been kicking his ass all night. Let's give Ultimate Spidey some love. This Christmas special is like in my top 5 episodes of this entire show. Granted, that's a low bar, and believe me, finding 5 really decent ones out of 104 was harder than you'd expect. This episode has a depressed and lonesome Spidey on Christmas reliving some memories of his early days as a superhero, which causes the art style to change to something really cool and classic. I feel like this is what Spider-Man freshman year will look like in motion if it ever comes out. Plus, he starts recreating 60s Spider-Man animations on his adventure, and it's one of the few times in this show that a joke actually lands. I dig it!
I've sworn I swung down the street before. Over and over. Must be deja vu.
I wonder if Troy Baker playing Shocker and Montana in this episode is like an intentional thing because of the last one. In addition to the memories of Christmas past, Peter is also shown a glimpse of the future if he gives up being Spider-Man. He's the CEO of Parker Industries or whatever, and all other superheroes have been killed off by Norman Osborn going by the title Goblin King. He's given these visions as a form of reflection after being blamed for crime, as per usual, and being ditched by the rest of his friends on Christmas Eve. But Spidey's indomitable human spirit can never be broken despite being tested again and again, and it turns out this nightmarish glimpse into the future was all a mystical scheme being controlled by Nightmare. Mark Hamill guest stars as the Dweller of Darkness, and really helps round out this episode as one of the best in the whole series. Although again, the bar is kind of in hell. This episode is a really great Spider-Man story on its own, and it feels like it could have been a mid-2000s one-shot from the comics. Like the short Halloween, but better. Sorry, bad example. Despite his pessimism, Peter Parker will never be able to throw away his hope for a better tomorrow, and that's why we love him. Of all these, I think the Static episode is still by far my favorite. I'm wondering if I used up all the really good ones of these in the first list a few years back, but I still have enough material to fit like 2 more videos of these. Have a wonderful Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Atheist Gift Exchange, or Die Hard's validity as a Christmas movie argument with your relatives day. You'll be on the nice list if you subscribe and support me on Patreon. Plus, you can check out our merch if you want an incredibly belated gift for the Godzillamendoza fan in your life, who you reasonably forgot to buy a gift for because they're also as annoying and forgettable as the host of this show. Maybe I'd have better self-esteem if you bought more of my junk on eBay, because I'm selling a treasure trove of nostalgic toys on there that are still in the box. Alright, I'm done plugging shit. I got mouths to feed, you understand? See you next time. I hope your cat stops knocking the tree over at night.